Imagine being an engineer in the Monster Hunter universe, or wait, I think they call them smithies. And some guy approaches you and says, "I want sword, also be axe." And you say, "No problemo, pard." And as you reach for your hammer and anvil to start work, they continue on. Make it explode. It has to rotate dynamically and automatically. It should glow. File ejection. Erectile dysfunction. Did I mention explosions? Cheeto dispenser. Yeah, fix my marriage. And being in the Monster Hunter universe, you say, "No problemo." Hard. As the overall smithy for this project, imagine a smithy cap going on. I need to break down this project in order of importance. So let's take all of these features and just toss them out for now. We'll get back to them, I promise. This leaves us focusing on the main movement of the device, which you can see from a game clip here. Specifically the up and down movement on the one side, as well as the rotational movement on the other side. So I spent a long, grueling 20 minutes in CAD to make this proof of concept just for you guys. Look at it. You'll also notice it's the Teostra version of the SWAGAXE. Truth is, I looked at a lot of different SWAGAXE designs, and what's funny is that they all function slightly differently. For example, look at these two side by side. Notice how different they are? I did try making the SWAGAXE design out of Connects at first, and it was just a little mechanically complex. Ooh, yeah, look at that. Shabang! What a strange weapon. Not to mention it was just kind of unreliable in essence as well. Choosing the Teostra design, it really allowed me to focus on the movement rather than all the bells and whistles. And it just looked awesome. That's a fact. No cap. In my CAD model, I boiled it down to two major movements. The slidey side and the spinny side. Yes, those are the appropriate engineering terms for them. Please do not use any other terms to describe these movements. And that made it simple enough, right? Right? Now, Hunter, do you even think? You need to remember, this is a weapon after all. And no flimsy system is just gonna work. These parts not only need to move reliably, but need to be mechanically robust. For that, we need to go bigger. Okay, here's the 1/3 scale mock-up. It automates the slidey movement, as well as the spinny movement. All that aside, you gotta appreciate how much work the smithy does. You just click a button and 5 seconds later, it's like, bam, done. Much like how I did it.
Perfection.
But the behind the scenes was more like this. And I don't think the Monster Hunter smithies would use plastic and hot glue. At least not as much hot glue as I use. And much to the expectations of how things usually go with prototyping, things didn't go as planned. So but there were some issues, specifically with the slidey movement. Oh, it's on my finger. This was mainly due to bad engineering choices. Whoa, let's not point fingers now. But if we had to blame someone, but that's okay, it's called rapid prototyping for a reason. So in my official Monster Hunter Universe CAD modeling software, TM, I redesigned things to actually work. Introducing the full-scale SWAGAXE, now with springs. And it's not just for the name drop. They actually dampen the movement of the fast-moving lead screw. And just look at this new carriage. It features bearings for smooth slidey motion. And, well, that's about it. There's only so many things you can change when iterating, you know? So let's put it all together and see how it works. First run, this guy should come this way, hit this switch and stop. This guy should come up, hit this switch and stop. Well, strange. Cool. That stopped there, that stopped there. So this is in axe form. If I press this green button here, it should flip. All right, let's see it. Oh God. That was clutch. And this should stop down here. Okay, I'm just gonna stop it because you can't see it, but oh my God, it worked. So this is sword form now. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Just time to assemble it.
After assembly, I plugged it in, turned it on, and nothing. The spinny jammed, so I had to take apart the whole thing again. Everything worked pretty well when I opened it up. Things were a little bit loose, but it is what it is. But when I tried to run it in the other direction, the slidey movement was not moving at all.
Well, okay, here's the brief. So the spinny doesn't hit the switch sometimes, not all the time, sometimes. My real problem is actually the slidey motion. On the smaller version, it worked really well, but certain things didn't translate with the larger size. First of all, the thread count per inch on the threaded rod I used was the same on the smaller version and the bigger version. That means the platform traveled at the same speed on the smaller version as to the bigger version. So it's slower on the bigger version, essentially. And the second reason is that the threaded rod was just longer, which gave it a lot of flex, which was problematic for driving that with a motor at the bottom. It ended up getting stuck a lot. And here's the situation. I can't just buy a threaded rod with a bigger thread on it. They just don't exist. And number two, really can't be fixed easily unless I go with a really thick threaded rod, but that would add too much weight to the final design. And we know how too much weight turns out in a Monster Hunter project. Look at this guy. So this means a complete redesign, in which I've sketched 5 different versions of possible solutions. All with varying complexity, of course. I like this one. And it's the easiest to build, go figure. So let's start here. This version is gravity-based, so let's give it a whirl. Literally.
First off was removing the old hardware to install the solenoid lock. Once that was in place, you can see that you can actuate it freely when it's not energized, meaning you can slide things over it, and it will lock in place. If you energize it, you can slide it freely down, and then reset it by unenergizing it. Let's do a quick demo. And that worked well.
What I like about this version is that it forces me to do the actions that the hunters do in the real game. And the solenoid door locks make it so easy for me to move the slidey bit from one side to the other. Simply open the lock on the side that it's on, and it will lock itself into the opposite side, as demonstrated here. I really like this design, so I'm going to go with it and not try the other ones because it seems like it's pretty robust. Honestly, at this point, we get a good combination of both hunter-driven mechanisms as well as electronic-driven mechanisms. And as for the issues with the powered side, the spinny movement, well, there were a few things. You know, just a few things. I had to be really cautious of how much weight I was adding to the blade part that spun specifically. And after a bunch of failed experiments, I ended up sticking with cardboard as the core and then building up foam around it to make it a very light sandwich. Strange, it's not a sandwich. To give this sandwich some extra strength, I used UV resin to coat the top layer. This is a really cool material to use for any props or anything because it just gives it such a smooth, elegant finish, as well as it makes it a little bit rigid. Definitely check it out if you're doing something similar. Also, sidebar, I assume that there's electronics in the Monster Hunter universe, given that a monster like Zinogre exists, as well as we've seen other technology throughout the games. And they got Dragonators.
Where's my Dragonator?
There's got to be some race within the Monster Hunter universe that builds things, you know, other than weapons, right? Right? With that, all of our problems are solved. But wait, I lied. No. Turns out the slidey and spinny fixes didn't work. Amazing. The summary is, well, overall the slidey mechanism just got stuck all the time, no matter what. And the slidey mechanism, even though I was using lighter materials, transitioning from just cardboard to cardboard foam and UV resin, made it too heavy. So the gears actually started grinding themselves to death.
That's not good.
How are we going to fix this? I don't really have any good ideas right now because we're really pushing 3D printing to its limits, and I just don't have access to things I know would work, like printing the gears out of metal or getting them CNC'd or something like that. Like, it'd just be too expensive and too timely at this point. And the game comes out in less than a month, and you know, I am starting to worry. I think I really need to sleep on this one. Okay, so after posting a short, I got some great feedback from all of you guys. And yes, I do post updates on my projects before I release them as a full video. So if you want to get in on that and give me some advice from time to time, definitely check out those short videos when I post them. But honestly, thanks to these users for some great suggestions as listed here. First off, try different 3D print materials like PETG or polycarbonate or even nylon. Number two, I could try different coatings on the outside of the gear itself just to give it a little bit more strength. Or I could also a resin cast within it. That's another idea I had myself. And number three, use 100% infill. This one should have been obvious to me as I was using very thick walls but not going 100%, but you know, it's worth a try. So the main contestants were these three gears that I used. The first one was resin printed with a cavity in it that I could resin pour into to add some structure to it. I also designed it so that the gears on the resin print itself would break away and expose that stronger poured resin. The second method was printing in PETG 100% infill, and the third method was 100% PLA, same as the PETG.
I started testing with the resin casted one, and it seemed to work okay at first. The thing did spin most of the way around. I took off the outer shell, and it spun a bit until it kind of failed.
So the idea with this gear is that the resin inside here, the resin here is actually the size of the gear, while this resin on the outside was just the mold, and I was hoping that this would destroy it, and actually, looking closely here, actually did destroy it a little bit. Destroyed it just slightly at the edge.
But reviewing it after, it turns out the poured resin was just as soft, so that one didn't work out. Next up was the PLA gear, and that worked fairly well the first time, and then the second time, things just kind of spun in place.
There it is, PLA. Look at that, just divots out of it.
And the third gear was the PETG. This one seemed to work the best. It did multiple rotations, which was good.
Definitely more durable, you can see here. Didn't notch it out as much. There's still small notches. The PETG ended up working the best, but funny enough, it ended up destroying my resin printed worm gear on the motor. So I ended up 3D printing that out of a stronger material as well. Overall, the gears worked pretty well, but there was still some natching, and I just took this as an acceptable measure because any of the other solutions at this point would just take far too much time. And again, I'm on a strict timeline, so I gotta get this done. I found that sometimes if I jerked the blade a little bit, it would get into a meshing gear position with enough momentum to keep it moving to the other side. So I think that's acceptable for now. And the final issue, the slidey bit, it really just had some tolerancing issues. Like, things were just getting stuck on itself. So I really refactored the design. I cut the fat where I could. I added fillets, and you know, it fit in a lot better to the overall mechanism. But you're always going to have issues with 3D printed parts that are plastic welded together. Like, things weren't perfectly flat. So I think it works perfectly acceptable for what I needed it to do. And even with the added weight of the shield, it still slid. Are we finally ready to put this thing together? Yes. Oh, finally. All right, it doesn't really look like a Monster Hunter weapon right now. Guess I gotta go grind more TOs, eh? I'm gonna outfit this thing in a whole bunch of different 3D printed parts, as well as foam veneers, as I like to call them. I hope y'all appreciate how hard this was to do in the middle of a Canadian winter, though. Just look at the scene. Fun fact, spray paint still dries in the freezing cold. It just takes a very long time. So this process took way more than I wanted it to. And just like that, it's all done. with a few bonus features to be seen shortly. All right, let's just get to testing. I'm so excited to show you guys what I made. Yep, this is going in the direction you think it is. And a lot of testing went into achieving this, actually. 5 versions of this file holder were actually made. We just don't talk about version 4 though. Remember, fire is dangerous and you should definitely not do this at home. Anyway, with a variety of hoses, nozzles, and adapters later, we get this.
Super glue, eh?
Ooh-wee, that thing is hard to swing around. Again, only about 20 pounds, but still quite the workout due to torque forces at play here. My video on the Wyvern ignition impact, really it goes over that, so check it out here. Kyle Hill was definitely right about real humans not being able to brandish these massive weapons. Especially if they're made out of steel, like that's ridiculous, man. What's your favorite Monster Hunter weapon that you want to see me build next? Yeah, I know, it's Charge Blade, I know, but feel free to leave your comment anyway, but I know. Just so you know, I know. As always, I've been your captain, and I hope you enjoyed your journey.